It is Tuesday, August 9th here in Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to night 4 of the 3rd annual Draft Sharks Invitational. I'm your host, Matt Schauf. With me tonight are the Deep End crew, Mike Shope and Adam Krautwurst. Not with us tonight is Jared Smola because he's going to be among the drafters. We're watching people draft the 4th league out of 6 in the Draft Sharks Invitational. We will get to all of the guys drafting, but Adam, we talked to you as you were drafting your team last week. It was Wednesday, but we haven't talked to you since that final result. How do you feel about your entry into this tournament?
I feel good. I mean, I was able to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do. I was able to get a lot of the players that I wanted to get. I'm a little light at receiver, but I'm super strong at quarterback, running back, tight end. So, and it's always a crapshoot with these tournaments like this with so many really good players. But I came out liking my team.
There you go. Mike, what'd you think of his team?
I don't remember. I was thinking you were going to ask me about mine, and I just went and looked. Adam always does
look at yours. What do you think about your team?
I think it's all right. It's funny, or not funny. It's just something maybe interesting how, like, it changes so fast. J.K. Dobbins in round 10, for me at the turn, seemed like, all right, well, maybe. And, now he feels better. But everything we're doing in the summer is sort of playing the odds, predicting certain outcomes, and trying to find opportunities where the news could turn your way. So I guess Dobbins would be an example of that.
Yeah, you still find a bunch of people who say it's nuts to draft before like August 30th, but it's not nuts. It's just different. You're making bets on what might change between now and the start of the season. So it's just different drafting. We will get to the drafters tonight. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see the picks have started, and we will certainly get to who's taking whom. All of these drafts, this is the 4th one, as I said, they're all running on fantrax.com, totally free, totally customizable for you as well as us. You can go to fantrax.com/draftsharks today. You can set up your own free league. You can import an existing league from a website that's not treating you as well. Maybe it costs a bunch of money and you can just import your league to this totally free one, run the same league, have your friends still involved, and have a better experience. Register your league in August. You're automatically entered into their game day experience drawing where they're going to send one lucky league to a city of your choice, NFL city, that is, of course, $6,000 of spending money. And Jared revealed to me in the studio this week that if you join via the Draft Sharks link, fantrax.com/draftsharks, you get 2 entries into that one. So click the link, set up your own league, you'll get in. We will talk format a little bit later on, but let's get to the lineup so that we can start announcing picks for these guys. Picking first is Zachary Krueger of NBC Sports Edge. He is at ZK_FFB. He, of course, was with us in Buffalo for the live Scott Fishbowl draft a few weeks ago as well. Number 2, Abib Agbetoba, 2-time champ of the Football Guys Player Championship, now part of the First and 15 podcast crew. He is at Skywalker2000 on Twitter. Number 3, Alan Seslowsky of Rotowire. He is at Alan Seslowsky on Twitter. Number 4 is Scott Fish, of course, the guy from that certain bowl that I just mentioned a minute ago, also involved with assorted other fantasy projects. We don't have time to run through everything that Scott Fish does. He is at ScottFish24 on Twitter. Number 5 in tonight's order is Pat Thorman of Establish the Run. He is at Pat Thorman. Number 6, Patrick Daugherty, also of NBC Sports Edge. He is at RotoPat. Number 7, Ian Hartitz of Pro Football Focus, at iHartitz on Twitter, and really one of the best follows on all of Twitter, don't you think, Mike?
Yes, I'm a big fan of Ian's. I talked to him briefly about an hour and a half ago about tonight, and maybe at some point, because I got to be more careful with what I say before players are picked or, trends play out. But maybe I'll be able to share something from what his, the little bit I learned about what he was thinking.
There you go. We don't want to give away their thinking before they make the picks, but these guys are all professionals. We're not revealing anybody that they don't know is still on the board. So
no, you're right, but I want to be a professional too.
That's great.
I'm striving for that.
That's a valiant goal. Danny Mueller is picking at number 8. He is a long time and very successful high stakes player, and he finished ahead of me in our DS Invitational League last year. He is at Danny Mueller 1. Number 9 in the draft order tonight, Mike Randle of 4for4, Fantasy Pros, Roto Underworld, SBR Sports Picks, basically writing for anywhere that wants him, I think, at Randle Rant. Number 10, Jared Smola, one of the most accurate rankers in all of fantasy football, Draft Sharks central nervous system, basically, and my buddy for the podcast. He is at Smola DS on Twitter. Number 11, Mike Oliva, And Adam, I think he's somebody that you just don't really want to draft against because he's a professor with degrees in psychology and economics. So he knows what you're thinking. He knows the way the economy works. He knows the efficient way to do things. He's a former professional poker player, so he knows the odds. He's a longtime best ball player, so he knows the format. I'm scared of him, Adam. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, if he knows what I'm thinking, he knows I have no idea what economics is doing. So he's got two of them knocked off right off the bat. Yeah, and great drafter, obviously very, very experienced. Yeah, tough room. I love seeing where these high stakes cash game guys are going to be drafting, and he's right behind Smola. So we'll see those two duke it out all night.
At Mike C. Oliva on Twitter. And then number 12 to close things out, Curtis Patrick, owner of Rotoviz, also an accomplished high stakes and best ball player. He is at C. Patrick NFL on Twitter. So now let's get to the picks. Now that you know who's making these picks, let's go to first in the order I said was Zachary Krueger. And he kind of told us who this pick was going to be on Twitter. You know, did it not blatantly, but showed us it was probably going to be Josh Allen, and that's who came off the board first. In this draft, we got 5 quarterbacks to start off this Superflex format. Again, it's best ball. It's 25 rounds. We start 3 wide receivers. We got a second flex spot beyond that Superflex position. So we started this one with 5 quarterbacks, Josh Allen to Zach Krueger. We got Lamar Jackson to Abib, Justin Herbert third off the board to Alan Seslowsky. Scott Fish took Patrick Mahomes at 4. And then Kyler Murray at 5 to Pat Thorman. Mike, is this more like what you would have expected most drafts to look like at the top? Or are you a little surprised we didn't get the first running back until the 6th pick?
No, it is what I would normally expect. It's also what I'd not want to be drafting in. I much prefer watching a draft like this instead of being in one. I thought I was lucky the first night that quarterbacks went later. I got Jalen Hurts at 12, and here he went at 7. But, you know, also at the same time, in a room of super smart players, you're going to inherently want to be different. And so that set things up for the guys toward the end of the first round. I'm sure we'll talk to Jared at some point and see what he was expecting when he picked 10th.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Jared says he'll come on sometime later in the show, as long as we're not too full up in the stream room here. But all the drafters have been invited. We'll see if anybody joins us along the way. We got several joining us at the last stream, which was fun. So we'll see who we get to talk to tonight. Beyond that Kyler Murray pick at 5, we had Jonathan Taylor go 6th to Patrick Daugherty. We had Ian Hartitz take Hurts at 7, as Mike said. Joe Burrow next off the board to Danny Mueller. Then Christian McCaffrey to Mike Randle. Cooper Kupp to Smola at 10. Austin Eckler, number 11, to Mike Oliva. And then Curtis Patrick took Dak Prescott to end the first round. Adam, are you surprised by any of the guys that came off the board in that first round?
No, I'm not super surprised. I guess Eckler would be kind of a surprise, but not really. I mean, it's hard to say based on ADP, but, you know, he's generally the third running back off the board. I would have thought Mike would have gone maybe Kelsey first and then Eckler, because I feel like with the tight end premium. But you know, Eckler's fine there. And Dak Prescott, I feel like I haven't really talked a lot about him at all. I mean, even on the deep end and with you guys, I feel like he's a guy that I'm probably fading, that I am fading. I don't think I have him anywhere. He's a guy that isn't going to run as much as he used to. He's getting older. He's not coming off injuries, but he's had significant lower body injuries. Loses Amari Cooper. The offense isn't as explosive. They're going to maybe run the ball more with 2 good running backs there. I would have probably taken Brady, Wilson, Lance, maybe even a healthy Stafford. I don't know. I'm just not a huge Cousins fan. I know you got to get a quarterback there for sure. But Dak, I'm not super high on Dak.
Mike, do you think the most surprising thing of round 1 is Adam calling a 29-year-old guy older?
No, but I do. I would have answered Prescott to that question too. I don't mind it. You know, I'm looking for stacks probably getting late there. Like I thought maybe Jared going Kupp over Jefferson could have meant Stafford, and it didn't. And I thought maybe Prescott or, you know, other guys in this range could have also meant stacks. And it's still only the second round, so we're going to have plenty of chances to see that materialize. But it is early for Prescott in terms of quarterback rankings, going 8 here ahead of Brady, Russell Wilson, and Lance at least.
I'm a little surprised that Jared took Kupp, because I know that he has been talking a bit lately about The question with Stafford's elbow making him maybe a little bit less comfy with Kupp at the top of the board. Obviously, it's not the top of the board when you're picking 10th, but that's because it's Superflex and he's pushed down. So he's the third non-quarterback off the board. And you mentioned if you're betting on Kupp there, he doesn't take Stafford back around the turn. So that seems like a bit of a hedge on Stafford's elbow. Dak Prescott, I don't really mind, and I've been wondering if I'm too low on him. He's not somebody that I've really drafted a whole lot, but I'm really not against him there. So I guess I'm a little surprised that Jared opted for Kupp over Trey Lance at that 10 spot, because I know how much he loves Trey Lance. The quarterbacks there are pretty bunched together, though. I wonder. I don't know. I guess we'll find out his thinking later on exactly who he picked at those two spots.
He took Brady over Lance too.
Yeah. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if that Brady pick is a bet that, stack options make it back to him there later on. Very, very interested to talk to Jared at some point about those two picks. Around that turn, Curtis Patrick took Dak Prescott to end round 1, then Justin Jefferson at the top of round 2. I think that's, Adam, a good example of not reaching for the stack if you don't think that CeeDee Lamb is that close to Justin Jefferson, and instead taking the wide receiver that you believe is, closer to the top of the board, maybe fantasy's top wideout by the end of this season.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I mean, I wouldn't have taken Dak there, but if you're going to go Dak, I wouldn't have gone Lamb. Yeah, Jefferson's just at another level. He's in the next tier for me up. Now, I do love Lamb. In fact, he went, well, you can get into where he went, but I like him at the 1-2 turn in standard drafts. So, but I love Jefferson even more. So I'm perfectly okay with that pick.
Mike, you brought up stacks. Do you think maybe if we were looking at a best ball mania draft on Underdog right here, it would be, but it's Superflex style. So I guess one of the puppy with Superflex drafts instead of best ball mania, you think it's Dak then Lamb, even if Jefferson's on the board because of the larger field?
Maybe. I would ask you whether you think it should be, like, just what the value of that strategy is and how it compares format to format. I might be closer to going Lamb over Jefferson there than you guys. I think I am, because I think, this is, you got to beat 71 teams, and, it's only been 3 already, but you might want to know what stacks have been achieved already. I think, it's not, what are the odds that Lamb outperforms Jefferson? Maybe 35%, 40%. Is that low enough to rule out that option for him? So, different strokes, but Jefferson is great, and he'll have other chances, like we've said already, to put different stacks together if that's how he feels that he wants to do.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of time to play with it and get other players to work in the stacks. I think that it's a big enough tournament that I would either, just looking at those two players, I would either like to have Lamb with Prescott or Jefferson with Cousins, because I don't know that there's a huge difference between Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins in terms of upside. So, we've talked about it on the previous 3 shows. The size of the tournament means you don't have to stack, but it's a tournament and you still want to stack, because we all know that things are not going to go exactly the way we expect. So the point of stacking is to decrease the number of things that you need to go right to get that ultimate ceiling.
If you want to go value, like I drafted 12th, and I had all these different ideas for what I wanted to do, and it came to be my turn, and there was Hurts. And so, okay, we're doing this. It was almost Murray and Hurts. Okay, we're doing this. And so Curtis would be interesting to find out, like, if he was really wanted to push in on Prescott, or like you draft at the end and you're worried about who your quarterbacks are going to be if you pass. And so, I mean, that clock runs fast. It just so many different ways to go. Trying to predict, maybe he would have thought, or somebody toward the end would have thought, that with 8 quarterbacks in round 1, it would be a while. There'd be good options coming back rounds 3 and 4. Turns out that 7 more went in the second round, but then it cooled off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's get further into that second round, because after Jefferson to start off round 2, we got Mike Oliva taking Travis Kelce. So his first 2 picks, non-quarterbacks. He's actually the only person who went through 2 rounds of the draft with no quarterbacks. Jared followed up Cooper Kupp with Tom Brady, as we mentioned. Mike Randle took Russell Wilson as his second pick to follow Christian McCaffrey. Danny Mueller doubled up on QB, followed Joe Burrow with Trey Lance. Aaron Rodgers to Ian Hartitz's team to join Jalen Hurts. Matthew Stafford with Jonathan Taylor for Patrick Daugherty. Pat Thorman took Jamar Chase with Kyler Murray. Notable that Jamar Chase made it past the Joe Burrow team, but Danny Mueller obviously going with two, higher end quarterbacks to start his team as opposed to chasing that quarterback wide receiver stack. Although looking back at that team, we now have a few wide receivers off the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Adam, do you think maybe that's a spot where you think about, instead of taking the running back that he took, possibly taking T. Higgins to stack with that first quarterback, Joe Burrow?
Maybe if it wasn't for the running back that he took. I love the running back that he took, Saquon Barkley. In fact, in my draft, I got to stop looking. This is why I don't look at drafts like everybody else does, because I just get so annoyed at where the players I want go. Like in my draft, he went just after my second round pick. He went like mid to late second, and here he goes late third. Says Saquon Barkley. So, but again, that is the beauty of this style, is you can build it any way you want. He goes quarterback, running back, and maybe he still does get Higgins coming back around. I'm trying to look to see if he went yet. No. So, yeah, it's just interesting because it's hard to predict what other people are going to do too, because they could go so many different routes. So, I know I really like his start. Burrow, I'm not huge on Burrow, but I love Lance, love Barkley, and I love the build so far, quarterback, running back.
Yeah, Mike, we're going to be in the studio tomorrow talking about players who give us good vibes or bad vibes in drafts right now. And Joe Burrow has the appendicitis. He had the surgery to get it removed. He's recovering from it. He's around practice, but he's not on the field yet. And the team just said there's no timeline for his return. What kind of vibes are you getting from Joe Burrow right now? Because I can't say that he's the comfiest guy for me.
Very mixed. I mean, they're such a tough team to predict, because you have sort of even obvious pluses and minuses. I mean, the pluses are more obvious, what they did last year, how good his receiving core is. They're investing in the franchise, the draft, the offensive line, all those things sort of arrow up. He's still young. But the minuses are sort of maybe more nuanced in terms of the schedule this year or expectations, Super Bowl hangover type stuff, if you believe in that. I really don't. Not worried about his current health state, but the efficiency numbers were so impressive on Burrow, and he still didn't even really finish that high at his position. So I think he'll do very well to repeat that. And Mixon is still Mixon. So I don't know, like it's back and forth. It's a tennis match for me on Burrow, but I almost never get him because, like Adam mentioned, Lance and you guys did, Wilson and other guys are just more interesting to me as quarterback one. And, in Superflex, you get what you get, but most of the time I end up somewhere else.
Yeah, I would be a little different on Burrow right now if he weren't sitting out with the appendix, recovery. And, it's not that I'm worried that that's going to keep bugging him into the season, but we've heard from previous players who had something that just stopped them from training for a while, and then it just makes it tough for them to get back up to full strength. I wonder if we're going to experience some of that with Joe Burrow. Overall, I'm certainly not worried about him because you mentioned he was very good efficiency-wise last year. And even though that means some room for regression, it was also coming off his ACL tear, and we saw him improve late in the season. He had young receivers with him, including the first year of Jamar Chase. So there's certainly room for just the offense and all those skill position players to just get better at football and better at NFL football this year. So not a group I want to be out on, but it's also the price makes me, just a little bit uncomfortable about paying for those top Bengals here and there. We have Danny Mueller coming back up right now, Adam, and we do have T. Higgins making it back to him. And I was going to say that just as you were making that point, with 6 wideouts off the board to that point, there was a pretty good chance, or at least a decent chance that T. Higgins would make it around the turn to him. So I think it was the right move to wait, and he still didn't take T. Higgins that pick. Took a wide out.
He's proven us wrong. And listen,
I've been waiting to say he had two other options too for a stack from one of his quarterbacks. Yes. One of them went
Debo,
but it wasn't the other guy there possibly either. Tyreek Hill.
I was going to say, he's like Danny, just, he's locked into this thing. I'm like, oh, he knows he can get Debo or Higgins. He's good to go. And then he takes Tyreek Hill, who's awesome, especially in best ball. So
I think picks like that reveal to us just how much somebody likes that player. Because if you have Tyreek Hill and T. Higgins right next to each other, then why not take T. Higgins to stack him with Joe Burrow?
Sure.
But if you think Tyreek Hill is significantly better, or even just that he has a significantly higher ceiling, then go ahead and take Tyreek Hill there.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we went through the Jamar Chase pick in round 2. Kirk Cousins was the second pick for Scott Fish. He started with 2 quarterbacks. We had Alan Seslowsky take Dalvin Cook after his first round shot at Justin Herbert. We got Lamar Jackson followed by Stephon Diggs for Abib's team. He played stack blocker to Zach, who might have been hoping for Stephon Diggs to get to that 2-3 turn. He did not. So Zach took Josh Allen, took Davante Adams in round 2, took Mark Andrews in round 3, maybe stack playing blocker. Yes. We got a duel going on right at the beginning of the draft order.
Yeah, no, I love it. I was a little surprised that Abib didn't take Andrews there. Maybe he thought he could get him on the way back around. But then again, some people just maybe they're not huge stack people, especially in these tournaments that aren't massive. But yeah, it was funny they kind of blocking each other there. I do like, for the record, I do like Lamb in a vacuum over Davante Adams this year. I just think there's too big of a range of outcomes for Adams, right? Like his massive quarterback downgrade, not massive, but a pretty significant quarterback downgrade, and the competition there for targets is going to be through the roof. So I think Lamb is the clear cut number 1 receiver in Dallas, and I think he's ready to explode this year.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how his season goes. I think that whole group of wideouts at the end of round 1 and beginning of round 2 is pretty tightly packed, and I would not be shocked if Lamb emerges and finishes even a little bit higher than his ADP. I wonder, I don't remember if we mentioned, but it is tight end premium here. So tight end's getting pushed up the board. Kelsey still made it into round 2, just past that 1-2 turn. Mark Andrews at the top of round 3, and then Kyle Pitts with the 4th pick of round 3. So I especially interesting to watch Abib's choices there. Mark Andrews fits the tight end premium. We also have to start 3 wide receivers every week, so that increases the value of wideouts. And I mean, Adam, that's why you set up the format the way you did when you made this baby, right?
Yeah, exactly. I like the flexibility to be able to go any route that you want to go. I generally end up taking quarterbacks kind of early, just because I like to get it out of the way. I like to get a couple of studs. Although I think I went quarterback in the 1st, the 4th, and the 6th maybe, but I got 3 starters, and I was happy with the way that turned out. But I ended up getting like Trevor Lawrence in the 3rd, and in the 4th, and he goes in the 3rd here. So that's the cool thing, is people are building any way that they want, and there's a bunch of different ways to win.
We had 8 quarterbacks in round 1. We had 6 more in round 2, so 14. And then near the middle of round 3 is when the next quarterback came off the board. Justin Fields at the 5 spot to Pat Thorman was his second quarterback through 3 rounds. Then Derek Carr with the next one to Patrick Daugherty. Mike, do you think that you would have stacked Davante Adams with Derek Carr back at the 2-3 turn and left Mark Andrews for the guy right behind you who already had Lamar Jackson on his roster?
I like the Andrews pick more than Carr for Zach, because I think you see quarterbacks go, so half of them, and almost half the starters were gone by the end of round 2, almost. So my guess would have been that it's going to slow down, because you see players like Pitts and Lamb and Debo Samuel and Barkley, in the 3rd round, and the 4th round looks much like that too. You're looking at like 2nd round players in other leagues. And I think, most of these guys, plus you want to test yourself in this room. I think, let's see if I need to get to the very last few starters for my 2nd or even 3rd at that point, I'd be willing to take that gamble. So it doesn't surprise me that Zach did. Plus he's got the QB1, he doesn't have to start 2 every week. And so he's got an advantage at that position across the board. I like Andrews, and I think that there's a pretty good chance that was what we saw between those two guys with Diggs and then hoping for Andrews or to put the pressure on Zach to let Andrews slip back to him, and Zach wouldn't let it happen.
And that's a great point, Mike. Like first three guys all did that. Allen, Lamar, Herbert. They all probably feel like, okay, I have a leg up because I do have an elite QB. So I'm just going to kind of rest on them, knowing that I don't have to start two QBs, and maybe I'll get depth later. And then, plus it comes back around to you like, man, do I take, Stephon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb, or do I take, Derek Carr, like Justin Fields? It's like it's just a gross decision to have to make, to have to take a quarterback. But I'll tell you, it doesn't get easier because then you get to the quarterbacks get worse and worse and worse. And you're still looking at guys like Cortland Sutton and Mike Evans, Hall of Famer Mike Evans. Like, how do I pass on these guys for Tua, stuff like that. So eventually it kind of evens out where, okay, the stud skill guys are gone, and now I can kind of settle back into like the depth quarterbacks there that are down the 23, 24 range.
You said you went 1-4-6 in yours. I think maybe I did that last year, and that turned out to be Prescott in the middle of round one because the pressure was on already, like this draft, and then rookie Justin Fields, and then rookie Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
So how do you think I did?
Yeah, I know.
I'm surprised at just how much quarterbacks slowed down after the hot start through the first two rounds, because we just talked about how the 2-3 turn went. Then CeeDee Lamb followed Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry, Kyle Pitts. Then it's the middle of that round. We mentioned Justin Fields went. Derek Carr is the 16th quarterback, which is lower, I think, than his ADP is in most places now. Then three more running backs, and Trevor Lawrence is the 17th quarterback. I'm not surprised through, that several of the drafters in that range didn't take a third, because if you've got two among the top 14, then you're set up pretty well. But I am a little bit surprised at those who are this far into the draft and feeling comfy with one, even though you don't have to start the two quarterbacks every week, you still want to. I mean, that's the optimal, is that you have two quarterbacks in your starting lineup every week throughout the year. So looking at where everybody is at quarterback right now, we talked about both Zach and Abib at one end. They've now each gone 4 straight rounds without adding that second quarterback, where even if you've got that strong guy at the top, Josh Allen for Zach, Lamar Jackson for Abib, I'm not sure I'm getting through the next 4 rounds without taking my second one.
Certainly respectable.
Yeah, it's tough, especially being at the Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I sort of already made the point when it came to the Carr pick. I would want to challenge myself here and we'll see how it turns out, right, Matt? I mean, we've got 12 starting quarterbacks or so in the league still on the board. Now, these guys at the far end who didn't get the luxury of the top 3 for their quarterback one, maybe it's a different equation.
Mm-hmm. And just to give a little bit more of the format, we've given it in pieces here, but it is Superflex. You do start 3 receivers. It is tight end premium. There are 25 rounds to the draft. It's best ball, but full season. There's no playoff weeks. So just the team that scores the most points by the end wins. 6 leagues. There's 1 league champion for each of those. And then there's also an overall leaderboard. And this isn't just some expert league. There's actual money on the line, not for entry fees, which I think can play into the strategies here. It's a little bit easier to play around with your build when you didn't pay to get in, but you want to win, because the winner of each league gets $500. The one overall winner of the thing gets $5,000 from Lenny Papano's pocket. So you should be trying to win this thing. I know I will be tomorrow night when I draft.
Yes.
And you made money last year, right, Matt? Did you finish in the money?
Not last year, but the year before. The first year that it was on, I won my league. And last year, I came in 3rd behind Crack Rock, who I drafted against for the 2nd straight year. And Danny Mueller finished right ahead of me as well. And I think, guys, I've now tested it through 2 years. The first year, I did my draft on stream, and I won. The second year, I was off stream. I focused. I didn't even check in with you guys during the draft, and I finished 3rd. So clearly, the results point to me needing to be on the stream tomorrow night.
Yeah, I like to do this fun thing where I come in second overall in the competition and don't make any money because I'm always second in my league. 2 years ago in the Pros versus Joes, I came in second overall, didn't win anything because the first overall was in my league. Last year, second overall in the Draft Sharks Invitational, Chad Schrader was number 1 overall and in my league. And then last year I drafted in a main event where the team took down the whole thing for $500,000. So I'm just good luck for everybody else. You want to draft against me in my league.
Chad will be drafting against me tomorrow night. And by the way, in this draft, Danny Mueller is the 2-time overall winner of that Pros versus Joes competition. So obviously knows what he's doing in the best ball format. So we'll be watching out for him here. I'm glad I don't have to draft against him this year since he finished ahead of me last year. So getting back to those quarterbacks, beyond the middle of the draft where we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight teams that had 2 quarterbacks by the end of their 3rd round pick. Then we had several more toward the end that started with just 1 QB for a while. We had Jared took 2, and then on either side of him, we had Danny waiting to take his first. We had Curtis at the end taking Dak, and then he still hasn't taken another one through his next 5 picks. We had, what team is that at 9? I'm cut off at the top of that, but I'll go over to where I have it listed. And
Randle?
Yeah, Mike Randle. So he took a quarterback in round 2, which was Russell Wilson, after his Christian McCaffrey pick, and then waited a while. Got Davis Mills in round 6 as his second quarterback. So now, Mike, we're down to just the team at each end sitting on 1 QB, and we'll see what Zach's picks are. But what do you think of being through 6 selections? We'll start with Curtis way at the other end because he's the one that definitely only has 1 QB. He's through 6 picks now. Still has just Dak Prescott at quarterback.
I'm okay. You know, he's done a thing that sets him apart. Not only the quarterback point, but something else that we'll get to that I think is really cool. You know, he's probably looking at the board and trying to find ways to be different, to take advantage of what other guys aren't doing. And that's maybe an especially good idea when you're picking at the end. As far as Zach, you know, like we said, it's Josh Allen. We'll see what he does here. But what was it? We decided it was 14 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds, and it's been 8 through almost the next 4 rounds. That still leaves 10 starters. So there goes one of them to Zach at 6-12. But there's still time.
Yeah, I agree. There's still some on the board. And I mentioned Davis Mills, and that kind of accelerated where I thought we were at quarterback. But I'm realizing that Davis Mills just actually went a little bit earlier than I would have guessed among the quarterbacks that were left on the board. Let's hit Jared's team real quick while we're at that end of the board, because he followed the Cooper Kupp pick in round 1 with Tom Brady, then Trevor Lawrence, then 3 straight running backs. Adam, he has had so I guess he had just the one time where he could have taken Mike Evans to stack with Tom Brady. He went with Alvin Kamara. So clearly grabbing what he considers value in Kamara. I was wondering aloud to myself if it was if he had 2 shots at Mike Evans, but then I realized it was at the start of that round. So Jared followed it with Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Travis Etienne, 3 running backs that I know he likes very much. Probably doesn't feel much pressure to add wide receivers right now with Cooper Kupp as the first one.
Yeah, no, he clearly has a plan. I think this has a draft war room smell to it, right? He's got the heavy running backs. I'm sure the war room was telling him to take Alvin Kamara for sure. So, and yeah, no, I like what he's done. I mean, Connor in the 5th, come on, ETN in the 6th. You know, taking that value there, absolutely. And then it is best ball, so you can go. I do like the strategy of running backs early. He's going heavy running back in the middle there and getting good ones. I mean, if you think of a standard draft, those are a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th round pick, or 2nd and 2 third round picks. So I really like what Jared's doing. I'm eventually he'll probably grab a tight end, and then he'll just pound receiver. I would think, which is a really nice strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see what wide receiver looks like for him. We'll see about tight end. Looking back at Curtis's team, he did eventually stack a Cowboy with Dak Prescott, and it was his most recent pick, Dalton Schultz, around the 5-6 turn. Mike, I'm going to guess that's what you were alluding to as the other thing he did to differentiate, and that is those 2 straight tight ends at that 5-6 turn. George Kittle first at the end of round 5, and then Dalton Schultz.
Absolutely. There's a stack with Schultz. There can always be the potential for one. If we talked about with that team, we've talked a lot about it tonight. He didn't pick Lamb, but he got to Schultz to start round 6. 2 tight ends is different. There'd only been 4 picked, or 3, actually 4. It is 4 before his pick of Kittle at 5-12. I keep wanting Kittle to go earlier in these. I'm thinking about Dwayne McFarland in League 2, and I was just early on that. And also tonight thinking about Danny in round 4 when we were talking about T. Higgins and Debo. I'm thinking about Kittle there as well, because I like the elite tight end in every format, just about, especially tight end premium. And Kittle for me qualifies. So tier break, and I keep wanting him to go earlier than he has. He went 6-2 in mine. I was just checking. So more of the same. Just nobody's, I guess, reaching for him.
Yeah, Kittle at 5'10" in mine. Can I call out Jared's pick when he's on the clock, or is that not kosher?
I have an idea too.
I think I know who it is. But
I would imagine that Jared would say don't do it because he doesn't want somebody to take it if he's hoping that it's going to make it back around.
No.
Right, which I won't.
Honor system.
Honor system. I won't say anything. But if I think I nailed it, which would be a great pick, and we'll discuss it once he.
That's it. You can go ahead and praise his hypothetical selection before he makes it.
All right, I'll do the hypothetical when he's on the clock. But I think Mike Randle's still picking. But yeah, like I said, some interesting builds. I really like. I really like the build Jared's doing. The 2 elite tight end build is really. It's not elite Schultz isn't considered an elite tight end, but the 2 early to tight ends is really a fun thing to do. It's unique. I did it in an FFWC main event the other day, not tight end premium, but it was being able to get because a lot of times guys just pass on players because. Pass on tight ends because it's not tight end premiums. But if you actually go look at projections and stuff, like they project a lot of the top ones. There he is, Dallas Goddard. I knew it. I wasn't going to say it.
I've got it too, but I've also got the next one written down. I want to get the double and show both names.
Dallas Goddard. So that's a guy I took in the 9th round of an FFWC main event, and I took him as my tight end 2 because he's going to score more points than the receivers going in that range, even in non-tight end premium. So I love that Goddard pick for Jared. Works with his build beautifully. Major tier break after Goddard. In fact, I like Goddard better than Hawkinson, better than Schultz. So great pick.
Maybe going forward, you guys could just write down who Jared's pick is going to be.
Just hold it up.
You can hold it up for the camera and we'll see.
I think I'm going to be wrong here. I got Goddard at 8-1. That's pretty close. I think I'm going to be wrong here. This is this would be plus 450.
Plus
I'm right
450.
Plus it's a parlay though. We've already locked in on Goddard. That would pay great.
Okay. You should buy out now.
Good sign for the bare knuckle. Cause I thought of Mooney when he was on deck. I'm like Mooney. Cause I was thinking about, is he gone yet? The other guy I want to mention. And I think he did go. Amon-Ra. Yeah, there he is. They're always so close together. I thought about him for Abib after he took Goff, but went for quarterback 3.
By the way, Goff is such a. Sorry, go ahead, man.
I definitely like Mooney and Bateman well ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown ahead of across formats.
Really?
Yeah. I think that among those 3 guys, one of them doesn't have a great shot at a dominant target share, and the other 2 do.
Who are we talking about? Mooney,
Bateman Mooney,
and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
And you think Amon-Ra doesn't have the dominant timeshare?
Yeah, I think among those 3 guys, both Bateman and Mooney should definitely be the number 1 wideouts for their team, and both could get 25+% target share. And I don't think that that's within St. Brown's reach without other guys getting hurt.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I think that's probably why he's in. Well, this is Superflex, but I think that's why he goes where he goes. Right? If they didn't have a healthy Hawk, if they didn't add Jameson Williams, he probably won't be back till mid-season. I haven't really heard much on him, but it's just guys with that profile, guys with end up generally continuing to do well, but it's just the guys around him. I like a little bit better, like you said. Obviously Bateman, certainly Juju. So, but I don't hate Amon-Ra, but to stay with the Lions, like Goff, I think such a great pick. Abib made out, I think, big time being able to get Goff in the 6th round as his QB2 after getting a stud in Lamar Jackson. That's what you want to see when you're waiting all that time. But you're right. I am surprised he didn't stack him.
That's interesting, Matt. I mean, no doubt what you say about target share makes sense. Will Baltimore throw 30 passes a game? Maybe not. That's the other side of that. Andrews exists, but I think like the counterpoint on Baltimore is volume. And on Chicago, they might throw 30 passes a game, but complete 15, some sort of really bad efficiency with the Bears, or everything seems to look bad. How much do you think Detroit will pass? They look like they want to do a lot of it. I mean, maybe we should watch Hard Knocks tonight, but man, signing Chark, not a huge investment, but drafting Williams and what Hawkinson's draft capital is, and then this guy. And if they're losing a lot, which seems probable, maybe, like, I think that could be, and you've probably already thought of all this, but the other side of that coin in terms of, like, there's the target share on one, and then, maybe a lot more volume on the other.
My issue there is I don't think Dan Campbell is going to be a 60% pass rate on purpose coach. He's a hard-nosed former tight end, blocking tight end, wants to run the ball. And, it's a little bit tough to fully gauge based on what they did last year, because by the time he was in charge of calling plays late in the season after they took it away from Anthony Lynn, there were a lot of injuries. That was part of what pushed St. Brown up. It also probably pushed their rushing rate up. So I don't think any of these three teams is going to be enormous total volume wise. And so that makes me lean toward Bateman as the best player among these guys, Mooney as the best bet to have a dominant target share, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown is somewhere behind him. And frankly, I think Juju Smith-Schuster is significantly behind those guys for me as well, who went ahead of them in this draft, which is why I bring him up.
I want to bet on Campbell being pass happy, because I think it's a great classic coach move to show up with one persona. And this has gone both ways at times, different guys you can think of. You could have a coach who comes off the opposite way of Campbell, but they want to run the ball all the time and establish the run. Maybe it's the genius of Dan Campbell that you're going to stereotype him as a big, hulking former player who's going to come out and just destroy you with data.
Destroy you with data. That should be on a t-shirt.
I do want to bet on Dan Campbell and the Lions to a degree this year, but Amon-Ra St. Brown's just not the place where I want to make that bet.
How did the Bills do it, right? I mean, Sean McDermott had a tougher persona, still does. Brian Daboll had never coached any sort of fancy passing, good passing offense where you could point to it and go, yeah, that's what Buffalo's going to be. Then they were. And that was Josh Allen, and a lot of people would say, well, he's the reason why, and that might be right. Anyway, my chips are down on Amon-Ra in Detroit.
Yeah, and I think the best coaches just do what their strengths of their team are. Like I'm going back a million years, but I think wasn't Brian Billick the offensive coordinator for the Vikings when they were unstoppable, and then he goes to Baltimore and they don't score an offensive touchdown for like 7 straight weeks, and they don't lose a game because they got the best defense of all time. So I think he knew he had to run the ball. He had a terrible quarterback, great line, great running back. So I think that I think the new coordinator for the Lions is a tight ends coach, former tight ends coach from there, I think, right? So maybe Hockett's more involved. Maybe they do pass the ball a little bit more, but Amon-Ra he's in a tier for me, and I can just have a couple other receivers out of him.
So let's look at Curtis Patrick's team again, because we talked about it a few times, and he did wait on quarterback after Dak in round 1, but then he just took Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones, back-to-back picks, and I would have to count through to see exactly what quarterbacks they are. But, looking at it at this point, since we've talked about his weight on quarterback, Mike, do you think it worked out for him with who he landed on?
Yes. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. We're somewhere around 25, I think. There goes Mayfield, maybe 26, but I might be off by 1. And Jefferson is his only receiver, and that's sort of like the Josh Allen thing where I've got the best guy in the game, so it's 25 rounds. He could draft 10 more receivers if he wants. He's got Kittle and Schultz and 3 quarterbacks now, 2 top running backs. He can really, just swing at wide receiver the rest of the night.
Yeah, it was QB 26 and 27 off the board. Carson Wentz went the pick before Zach Wilson, so that could have been in the pool as well. Baker Mayfield was still on the board. He's gone now. So I agree. I mean, if you're going to wait, that's how you're hoping that it's going to work out. And I think as long as people aren't going too quarterback thirsty, it can really work out in Superflex to take somebody that's top 10 to begin things and then wait while some other folks are gobbling up, worried about things running out. And, you gauge it, especially if you're on the end, you gauge how that round went. There's always going to be some gamble to it, but I think it's fine to take one of those, near top guys and then wait and collect some of these lower level players that you're never going to put into a starting lineup yourself in a 1 quarterback league. But if you're just sitting them on your team and hoping for spike weeks, it works out. I'm sure that he'll add another quarterback at some point, though he doesn't need to over these next few rounds now that he got 2, at least as far as we know right now, locked in starters in Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones.
I have a quarterback. Sorry, Adam, just quickly. I have a quarterback name. I was going to ask if he gets drafted tonight. But would that be bad to do?
You're wondering if he's going to get drafted at all?
Yes.
Oh, I think that's fine to bring up.
Mason Rudolph.
Is there another report this week on him?
Shark bite? Is there a shark bite on Mason Rudolph?
Read the shark bites, Mike. I don't know. Like, he's still just sort of sitting there, and they say he's going to play a lot in this preseason game, and the other 2 guys have been kind of terrible. Maybe?
Sure. I mean, yeah. There's going to be guys with Mason Rudolph's archetype. Am I allowed? Can I say that? And that are going to get drafted in this.
Word of the week.
Nailed it.
In this draft. But that's the thing about when you wait on quarterback that long. I'm wondering if he would have wanted Carson Wentz there, because I think he's a little more solidified. Zach Wilson is solidified, but he could be awful again. I mean, he was really, really bad last year. Bad football wise, bad fantasy wise. And Daniel Jones, who I, loved up until a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they're talking about he has a neck injury that is his velocity is shot. He's getting benched in practice for Tyrod Taylor. Like Tyrod Taylor, now I don't want to go stealing anyone's picks, but like Tyrod Taylor might be the guy that you want to pick for right. This team, and maybe he will. So,
or Flacco.
Right. Because the Jets have talent there. I mean, oh God, they have Jeff and Joe Flacco is gross, but that's what happens when you're in a 25-round Superflex draft with no kickers and no defenses.
Yes.
Yeah, and you might think Mason Rudolph and think, well, that's stupid. Why would anybody take Mason Rudolph? Jarrett Stidham went in the last draft late in that one. So that is what you're considering here, is those backup quarterbacks come into play. It's just like a handcuff running back where probably they're not giving you anything, but they're an injury away. And yeah, I mean, Mason Rudolph, I think, could work as a very late round pick here. I don't think he's going to be on my roster, and I'm giving that one away for free to my competitors tomorrow night. Drafting Mason Rudolph. But I can see the path to him. I'm not going to call somebody else stupid if they do it ahead of me in round 24.
I wouldn't. I picked Pickett in mine because Pickett, like, they have to get him on the field eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, right? I said that about Lance, though. Lance was even more, obviously, they have to get him on the field, and they didn't, except for an injury, and they went to the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part of that is we can sit here and say they got to put him on the field. They took him in round 1. Obviously, they believe he's the future, but you don't want to put a quarterback out there if you think it's going to damage him, going forward. We've seen that happen with rookie quarterbacks before. Who knows for sure how Joey Harrington might have felt or might have fared if he had more time to learn before going in, or how David Carr might have fared if he didn't get sacked 112 times as a rookie. But, if you can afford to and you think your guy needs some time to develop, then there's nothing wrong with doing that, as plenty of examples have showed us. Looking away from Curtis Patrick, but at that end of the board still, we had, so Jared took those 2 quarterbacks, took Dallas Goddard as you predicted. Did he take guys that you expected him to take after that? Took Michael Thomas and Kadarius Toney with his next 2 picks. Either of you guys rate those down before you made them?
No, but I think looking at the list after I wrote my guy down, Thomas was Thomas outranks Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk, no matter what.
Match game.
Christian Kirk.
With Lawrence, but Kirk, he went the next round. It would have been early for Kirk.
Yeah, and I like Thomas. Thomas is a guy that I think we might talk a little bit more about tomorrow, but I think it's a great pick there for Jared to, it's time to start hitting receiver. And Michael Thomas, you could do worse as your wide receiver too in the 8th round than Michael Thomas for sure.
Right.
For sure. And you were talking about the arm issues with Daniel Jones. That was from Dan Schneier, who we had on the podcast yesterday in our Team Insider series. So you can check out that episode on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, draftsharks.com, wherever you want to find your podcast. That's a free show for anybody. A good one. He gave a lot of info, clearly a close Giants watcher. So some good info from that one. And, all the other folks, we just did our 12th today with Greg Allman of The Athletic talking Bucks. So check out all those episodes on this channel where you're watching this or elsewhere. Mike Randle next to Jared took Russell Wilson as his quarterback in round 2. Sandwich that between a couple of running backs, Christian McCaffrey, DeAndre Swift, then 2 receivers, Michael Pittman, Brandon Cooks, Davis Mills as his second quarterback in round 6, ahead of some other guys that are interesting, but I think it's a range that makes sense for him. Then Darnell Mooney, Brandon Ayuk, the next 2. We saw, let's see if Brandon Ayuk right ahead of Danny Mueller, who might have had the stacking opportunity there with Trey Lance, and then Chase Edmonds, his most recent pick. Mike, does anything stand out to you from that one? Do you think that he did okay in waiting on that second quarterback with Davis Mills, and or would you have also added a third at some point since then?
Still might. You said it. I mean, Mills was early. It threw you off because you see Davis Mills, you think you're 2 quarterback 28 or whatever, but that was more like 20, I think. It was definitely not 28. Mayfield might have been 28. He had Cooks, Matt, so I'm guessing that's part of it. I mean, there's a path for that team to throw a ton and be successful. There's another receiver still on the board from that team that people like. So guessing that Cooks had something to do with Mills, but I'm okay there. Strong at receiver. A lot of Brandon Ayuk steam right now. That could definitely go well. And just like in other drafts, you love some of these running backs in this range, and that includes Edmonds for me. So, yeah, that works. No tight ends yet.
Running backs are interesting to look at because especially looking at the guys that we have on each end of this draft. So Zach Krueger has not taken a running back yet, and I believe he's the only team with no running backs right now. I know he has some Rotoviz roots, so I'm not shocked to see the 0 RB approach for him. At the opposite end of the draft is Curtis Patrick, who, as I mentioned, is the current owner of Rotoviz. He took a couple of early running backs in Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette at the 3-4 turn. So, it's interesting just to look at those two versus each other. I don't know specifically how big a 0 RB proponent Curtis Patrick is. I would imagine that he is at least a supporter of it, though.
Yeah, for sure. And trust me, I really like that hero 0 RB strategy, but I like it more for lineup setting leagues. Best ball, again, I like to go running backs early, but hey, if you're going to go with 0 RB, I mean, he's kind of committing to it, and he's doing it now. As long as he continues to, I don't want to talk about a draft team, but as long as he continues to go with some of the crux that 0 RB is built on, and gets a certain type of running back, and gets a certain amount of running backs. I don't remember if he picked a tight end, and I can't see right now, but generally, that strategy is open to, elite quarterback, elite tight end, tons of really good receivers, and then just backup running backs hoping for more than 0 money back. So
yeah, we got whoever is commenting via the Rotowire handle on the YouTube channel right now says 0 running back equals 0 money back. So gauntlet thrown down to Zach's
right.
0 RB team in this draft.
That's right.
I'm guessing that's Alan Seslowsky, maybe at 3, who has 4 running backs.
Well.
There you go.
He did throw out there in the Fantrax chat at the beginning that he was getting things rocking. Yep, confirmation. It is Alan Seslowsky. And he threw out at the beginning that he was getting the Fantrax chat going for trash talk. You love to see that. I mean, that's one of the fun parts of any fantasy draft. And it's nice when, these pro drafters can come together and still have a little fun with it like that.
On Fantrax, we'll be able to see the overall leaderboard you guys have been saying. Is there any way already to sort of put the leagues together, if one feature that would be good, even on Underdog, where you draft somebody enough times, there's that exposure tab and you can see how many times you got them. It'd be great if there were another tab where you could see what round or what pick they were in all your drafts. I'm certainly in awe of Underdog. I'm not saying that there's a flaw or anything like that, but that would be nice to have. And even in terms of our broadcasting tonight, we're talking about George Kittle or some other player. There'd be like a function where you could see, all right, 5'11", 6'2", 5'8", whatever picks he went in other drafts. But we are going to be able to chart the leaderboard this way, apparently, through the season.
Which will be fantastic. A lot less work for us over at Draft Sharks trying to assemble those top tens.
Zach Krueger did take his first running back just now, and it is middle reliever Ken Walker of the Seattle baseball team. So he joins a squad that also more recently added its second quarterback, Josh Allen, back in round 1. And then Zach waited a while and took Mac Jones at the 6-7 turn as his second quarterback. Probably fell some based on the recent reports of the Patriots offense struggling. Adam, that was after, where I said Davis Mills threw me off a little bit with just how many quarterbacks were off the board. So we had 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I believe that Davis Mills was the 20th off the board. And then Jameis 21st, Jared Goff 22nd, Mac Jones 23rd. So really it's a fair range for Mac Jones, but just some of the guys he went behind, Jared Goff and Davis Mills in particular, seems like maybe a little bit lower than he might have a week ago.
Yeah, and I mean Mac Jones is a guy I don't think I have any of. I mean, I'm out on a guy. I mean, they're on a team that isn't very good, doesn't have very good skill guys, who's calling the plays, he can't run. They're just the offense is not going to be great. So I'm out on Mac Jones for sure. But I understand it in a super flex where you got to grab him eventually. And maybe he had his heart broken, Zach did on losing Jared Goff there. But yeah, the 0 RB build, I mean, the Kenneth Walker pick, great pick. I mean, for if you're going with a 0 RB build, you're looking at a guy here that's an injury. Maybe he'll win the job outright. And he's an injury away to Rashad Penny, who's always hurt. An injury away from him from massive volumes. That's the type of running back you're looking for when you are doing 0 RB.
Massive volume, especially because when they're down with 4 minutes left in the game, 28-9, they're going to hand it off.
They're still running. Exactly.
They're going to run it.
Yeah, you don't throw it until you're at the goal line in the Super Bowl in the last play of the season.
Unreal.
That's me breaking out.
Which I support. I defend that, by the way. Different show. Maybe tomorrow morning we make that a topic.
I would love to discuss that tomorrow morning.
Oh, you would too.
So alongside the wait on a running back until round 11 for Zach, he took Josh Allen, Devontae Adams, Mark Andrews, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Mac Jones, DK Metcalf. So we got 2 Seahawks on this team. That's an interesting strategy to win money. But Amari Cooper after that, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Gesicki, and then Kenneth Walker. We'll see about whether there's a third quarterback. I would assume that he's going to hit running back pretty good over these next few rounds, and then fill in elsewhere beyond that. We are in round 12. No, we're almost to round 12. It is a 25 rounder, so we're not even halfway through the draft. We're more than halfway through our stream. We're not going to go past an hour and a half on us, though.
There is a certain quarterback there for Zach if he makes it back with the team he's built. Adam, we have 4-hour drives to Canton coming up and back. I'm sure I'll have to get Marshawn Lynch's goal line stats ready for you. Apparently,
I've got another take on that play. That's just you're gonna hate it, and I can't wait to tell you all about it.
What? How are you guys gonna tease that and not go ahead and give it up?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, throw it away.
People listen. You guys know how I feel about Bill Belichick and just how he's been caught cheating at the highest level. Malcolm Butler, the corner, said after the game he knew that was coming. He knew that play was coming. How in the world would you know that play is coming? Nobody knew. No, but he jumps the route. He beats the receiver to the ball. How does he know that? I'm just telling you. There's a coach that's been caught videotaping Super Bowls. That's all I'm going to say.
No days off.
That's all I'm going to say. That's all. He's been caught videotaping teams' practices before Super Bowls before. That's all I'm going to say.
Remember the receiver's name?
I don't. Was it Moore? I don't know who.
Lockett.
Know who it was. Lockett. There you go.
Ricardo Lockett.
Ricky
Wasn't it
Ricardo
Matt? Wasn't
Lockett.
it Ricardo Lockett? You're looking at me like you guys have
I was just trying to remember who it was. Honestly, I don't remember.
Lockett with an E on the end, I think. Ricardo Lockett, I think.
Lockett.
I'm sure somebody will throw it into the chat pretty soon.
Right.
Let's look at Abib's team right next
with a
to
timeout.
Zach. What?
Sorry, go ahead. With a timeout. No, I'm just go ahead.
So
timeout.
Abib, after taking the quarterback to start things, just like Zach, took Lamar Jackson, and then they played stack block for a few rounds. Took one running back among his first 7 picks. He has since added 2 quarterbacks. So we're looking at how many teams have 3 QBs? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. And interestingly, after Curtis was the last to take a second, he's now one of the few to have 3. So that's certainly a way, as we were talking about earlier, to handle that super flex, model. Is it might look like you're just backing away from the position, but if the whole rest of the league is also backing away so that they can take some of those skill position guys that they've been passing on, that's when you get guys who will start even if they're not fun to have on your team, hanging around, and then you just scoop a couple at some point.
Now, Jared's last pick was gettable. That was gettable.
That was a great pick.
That was gettable.
I had just realized that he was still on the board, and we're talking about Desean Watson, and that's noteworthy because he has been climbing up in ADP lately since we got the 6-game suspension announced. I think that this particular pick, I don't know how indicative it is of current best ball drafting, but it sure makes it look like everybody is worried that the NFL is going to get its way and we're going to get a longer suspension for Watson this year.
And that Watson won't sue and take the fact that he's got a $1 million salary, take the L, sit out the year, and everybody wants to be out. 3 rounds went by before another quarterback was taken. I think the least likely scenario now is 6 games. He either gets 8 or more, 12 the whole year. It's going to be more than 8 if you're to bother to do this appeal process, or that suspension comes down and he sues and maybe plays week 1. So it seems like 6 now is not really likely at all. Everybody's fed up, Matt, right? Like fed up with trying to predict this and maybe has given up on it. So credit to Jared and the players who want to keep attacking the uncertainty on Watson, because there's more upside than ever.
Yeah, two things. One, if Watson only misses 6 games, I feel like he could still outscore Baker Mayfield after total overall scoring and guys like Mac Jones. But the second thing is, I agree. Thank God it is a quarterback, because if it was any other position, like it would actually matter. Like Desean Watson's like, if he goes in the 15th, who cares? If we find out tomorrow that he's playing the full season, like people who took him as their QB2 or QB3 in a standard league, whatever, like it's not going to make them a contender immediately. It's not going to, so. But if it was like a top 5 or 6 running back or receiver, that would affect everything. So it's just something that I'm not really worried about. It does matter with the value of like Amari Cooper and Njoku and stuff like that. But, we all assume they're going to run the ball a bunch anyways, regardless. So, that's it.
I agree with not generally mattering as much a quarterback as the other positions, but we are also talking about a guy who could finish top 4 if he's there for the whole season. So if you're getting that guy at QB 25 plus, then, there's certainly room for Desean Watson to make a big difference on this fantasy season.
Sure. But, if you were to take him as your QB1 and it works out, then I think it's a huge value for you. But if you have like Jared, let's say this was a standard league and you've got Brady and Watson, like how much better is Watson going to be than Brady that it's going to make a massive difference and it's going to win the whole thing for you. So he's most people's QB2 or 3 on the roster. So, unless he's QB1 overall, I don't think it's going to be a massive difference in my opinion.
That's fair. I'm counting up the tight ends right now because it's just another opportunity for me to gawk at how late Evan Engram goes. And we got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I mean, this is even a little bit high for him in overall numbers, but to me, it's nuts that you would take Irv Smith and his one thumb over Evan Engram straight up.
He went ahead of the Los Angeles tight ends too tonight, which is not common.
No.
Not a stack either. So Abib is with you. I don't know. I love Irv Smith's potential there. I do think Engram is in a great position to get a lot of targets from Jacksonville, so I'm fine with that too. But, Smith is supposed to be ready for the opener, and that's a great setup for him.
Yeah, I mean, I singled out Irv Smith. It's really not a huge deal with him in particular. I do think that Evan Engram is underpriced, and I talked about him the last time all four of us were in the studio together to do a podcast. I'm going to bring him up again tomorrow, the next time that we're all in the studio. By the start of this season, I want the Evan Engram flag to be flying from the back of my car so that when he helps people out this year for the 10 games he's healthy for, that people remember where they heard about him.
Yeah.
Great idea. I'm trying to see where he went in mine. I can't even see where he went in mine, but
so Abib, I think, did well to wait on tight end here, and it can be uncomfortable in tight end premium, but it's a late pick for Pat Freiermuth to be his top tight end, round 12, and it looks like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, maybe the 15th or 16th tight end off the board in this one, which is later than he has been going in typical best ball drafting. And I think that it seems that Abib likes Evan Engram, at least to some degree, because like I said, even though he went after some other guys that I would personally take Engram over, tight end 17 off the board is earlier than his ADP has been anywhere for whatever reason.
Yeah, I was looking for him in my draft. I took him at the 12-7 actually. So I took him earlier than they did here. So I'm all in on Engram. And I took him as my tight end 3 behind Goddard and Ertz. So, yeah, no, he's a guy that I think is going to get kind of a post hype sleeper for all the reasons that we've talked about for 2 months.
Other weights on tight end. Sorry, go ahead, Mike. I noticed.
Isn't he terrible?
No,
maybe no. Isn't
not
he terrible?
No.
Okay.
No. Wasn't he a first round pick? I mean, he's fast.
Oh, listen.
I'm just
it's a good
saying.
thing that's a 4-hour drive. I got a list of first round picks.
Well, he flashed. He's already done it. He's already done it with the Giants. He's already done it. I'm just
the rookie year, right? The rookie year was good. Yeah. He's been a disaster ever since.
Well, he's been hurt. He's been hurt.
True.
That's too strong.
Yeah.
What word would you put on it? What his last 3 years with the Giants have been like?
I would say the last 2 years have been disappointing, and before that, he did well with what he got and when he was healthy. And I think that the reason that I'm so much in on Evan Engram now is that all of those concerns are baked into where you're getting him, where if he fails at where I draft him, then it doesn't really matter. And he's still, at worst, I think, when healthy, a tall slot receiver. So he's in a spot now where that can be good enough. We had Hayes Carline on the podcast earlier to talk about Jaguars, and he said he listed the top 3 that he expects in targets among Jaguars to be Christian Kirk, Evan Engram, Travis Etienne. And I think if we get a better offensive coach than he had maybe at any point with the Giants, but certainly over the last 2 years, we should get more of a downfield Evan Engram like we saw at the start of his career. So beyond that, if it's just a question of whether he's healthy, I just don't care about that for a guy who's going in tight end 2 range.
Well, Jared settled our Los Angeles tight ends problem by doing both.
That's right.
I know I had not written those names down.
And not stacks on either of those guys for the quarterbacks that he got. Let's look at some other weight on tight end teams, because I was just about to bring up Mike Randle next to him, who had a similarly long wait on tight end. And I think he also did well, like Abib. Got David Njoku, Noah Fant with back-to-back picks in the 11th and the 12th. Adam, what are your feelings on those 2 tight ends?
Like Njoku, like the idea of Njoku. I want the coaching staff to stop talking about how great of a blocker he is. And then I'll get really excited about him. If Watson plays, I'll be really, really excited about him. So I see it. So I do have Njoku more, but I've been taking him much later than guys like Noah Fant are generally going. I feel like Fant, I think, is not going to do super well in Seattle. But again, in this range, best ball. Maybe we'll see. Maybe he pops a couple of games. And again, when you wait on tight end, I guess you could do worse.
Alan Seslowsky agrees with you, but hey, it's a tight end friendly offense. Speaking of friendly, Jared, our buddy, is joining us in the stream now. Jared, how do you feel that your draft is going so far?
I mean, sometimes you have those drafts where it's like everything goes right and you walk away feeling good about it. This isn't one of those drafts for me. Kind of the story of my super flex life. I feel like I'm just always chasing quarterback in these drafts. I think this has got to be the quarterback heaviest start we've seen out of these first four, right? So, I knew there was a chance I wouldn't get one of those the top 6 quarterbacks were on my, board for the first round. And I thought it was, maybe 50-50 that a Hartitz or a Kyler got to me. That didn't happen. Then it, sort of snowballed from there. I feel okay about the 2 guys I landed on. Don't love, having to spend 2 of my first 3 picks for those 2 guys.
Were you considering anybody else with Cooper Kupp at that first spot?
No, it was at that point down to, but when I was on Dak, McCaffrey and Kupp, those are those are the 2 highest guys on my board. Mike Randle took McCaffrey, who I would have much rather had. When Randle took McCaffrey, it was Kupp for me.
And then around the turn, what was it that pushed you to Tom Brady as opposed to Trey Lance or stacking Stafford with Kupp?
So Stafford wasn't in consideration for me. He's, far enough behind Brady and Lance in our rankings and projections where I wasn't going to, make that reach for the stack. I strongly considered Lance there for ceiling and just because I think he's more exciting. But I trusted our projections, our rankings. We have Brady, 15, 20 points ahead of Lance in our projections. So I went with Brady there.
Mm.
Yeah. Did you think, I'm just trying to look here, the Trevor Lawrence, I know I ended up getting him in the 4th, but
Yep.
were you worried 11 and 12 there? We're going to take another one?
Yes. And at that point, it was Lawrence and Tua as sort of the last 2 guys in that tier. And I definitely much prefer Lawrence. So I just grabbed him there.
Yeah, and that was with Mike Oliva with no quarterbacks on his roster yet. So
Right.
I think a decent chance that he would have taken Trevor Lawrence. We did see him take Tua before that next turn. We've talked a lot about how we feel about Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. I'm all aboard. And I also was able to get ETN as a stack a few rounds later, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jared, what did picking 10th mean to you, or what does it mean to you in general in terms of what could happen behind you? So many quarterbacks taken, as you said, but the pressure is on at the end of the round. No tight ends yet. Kupp is wide receiver 1. You really, as you're picking in that 10 spot, you're trying to figure out what might happen behind you so that you can decide what to do, set yourself up for round 2. How does that work itself out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I knew the first round would be sort of easy because, again, I was looking at the 6 quarterbacks and then McCaffrey, Taylor, Kupp, and Jefferson. I knew I'd get one of those guys. And then beyond that, I mean, I'm always just looking at 11 and 12 and, specifically what they have at the onesie positions. Or I guess it's not a onesie position in this league, but, at quarterback and tight end, and that's sort of dictating what I do. Like, the Watson pick was interesting. I knew Oliva and Patrick by that point had already had 3 quarterbacks. So I knew they weren't going to take Watson as a 4th, or I was pretty sure. And, I almost took Watson in the 10th round there at 10-3 instead of Pollard, but I went Pollard, and I was happy to see Watson get back to me at that, 11-12 turn.
What made you go ahead and take Pollard as a 4th running back despite having the 3 we think could be studs?
Yeah. I mean, the quarterbacks went early in this draft. The wide receivers went early in relation to the running backs, I think. But now I'm looking at, Pollard versus, look at the wideouts that went behind.
Jacoby Myers,
Rondell Moore. Like even with the 3 backs, I could not take one of those wideouts. It probably would have been Claypool for me, but I could not take Claypool over Tony Pollard.
You're up here, and I've written a name down. No pressure.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm doing. I got to figure this out.
Well, I can't show him, right? I can't. This is not one of those. I can't do that. Not that he would want to go along anyway.
We'll take you off the hook from having to talk through who you're picking at this spot. We'll get that from you in a minute. So just looking at the rest of Jared's picks after the ones we talked about, I think we all knew he was taking Dallas Goddard. And if you've been listening to the podcast, that's who you were guessing as well. Then Michael Thomas after that, Kadarius Toney, Tony Pollard, MVS after that, the Desean Watson pick that we've discussed. And then Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett. So we've got 3 tight ends matching the 3 wideouts on Jared's roster right now. Jared, you said that this is not one of those drafts where you feel great, everything's going just how you expected it to, and it shouldn't be in the draft rooms that we put together for these. How do you feel about having so many tight ends versus that number of receivers to this point where you have to start 3 wideouts every week?
Yeah, that 13-14 turn was interesting. I mean, I knew I wanted to get 1 tight end at that point as my tight end too, because I had Higbee and Everett at that point as the last tight ends in that tier. And then when, I kind of expected Oliva or Patrick to take one of those guys as their third. When they didn't, I was looking at our projections. We have Everett projected to score more points than any other running back or wide receiver that was still available at that point. And again, he's the last guy in that tier. I don't love any tight end past Gerald Everett. So I decided just to double tap it there. And I'm probably going to be done at tight end. Maybe I add one more super late guy.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about it before. I think the wide receiver spot is the easiest one to just collect players, no matter how you really feel about them, just guys with opportunity late and hope that they deliver numbers. Was Van Jefferson somebody that you like taking there, or was it just like, I need a receiver, I don't love anybody, I'll take the guy that as long as he's healthy, I like his situation?
I actually hate Van Jefferson as a player, but I think he's going to be back in the same role he was last year. And he was a top 40 PPR wide receiver, I believe, last year. And it sounds like the knee surgery, he'll be back by week 1, if not, a few weeks after that. So he's more of a floor pick, which I sort of need, considering he's my 5th wideout. There
is something you don't hear that often in home leagues about a player that was just picked by you. I actually hate him. Nobody in the home leagues are picking guys they actually hate.
Right.
That is a heavy drafter.
Well, plus, I like to point out the personal growth by my buddy Jared there. He's willing to pick guys that he didn't like. He hasn't liked Van Jefferson ever since he was a prospect either. It's not a recent thing.
Well, at least he hates guys that he's taking in the 15th round. I mean, if Jared were to not have gone, like, I like the Tony Pollard point is great. Like, am I going to reach for a receiver that I hate in the 8th round? Or am I going to take a running back that I like there and then just figure it out? Like, that's kind of what these drafts are sometimes. They're puzzles, and you got to go with the player that you like better, and then just figure it out a little later on. I mean, you hate Van Jefferson, but at least it's your 15th pick and not your 8th.
Here's a pick for Matt right here. Here's a pick for Matt.
He's got one more shot at it. He's got one more shot at it. He's got one more shot at it, baby. There it is. There it is. Dubs.
There it is.
Dub season.
I was just noticing that Christian Watson had already left the board ahead of Dobbs, which should not be the case at this point.
And Sammy Watkins went the pick ahead of him.
You got away with one there, buddy.
I'm happy about that one.
So I saw a show about Dobbs a week ago, and it was really interesting. They talked a lot about him, and they figured out how to say the name right. What show was that? Adam, what show was that? Ours,
I think.
Yes, that's right. It was our show. Dub season.
Jared, you've got, after not taking the Matthew Stafford stack with Cooper Kupp early, you got a whole lot of Rams collected now. Has that been a thought of yours along the way of, like, are you trying to ignore what team they're on? Or are you like, well, I guess I'm going to stack the Rams anyway. I don't need the quarterback. I'm just betting on the pass offense. Or
right.
What's the thinking there?
I mean, honestly, I thought they were all good values where I took them, but I guess secondarily, like, I'm already betting on Stafford being fine when I took Kupp at 110. So at that point, I might as well just bet that Stafford's going to be okay and take these, Rams. And that, I don't know, maybe they are falling because of the Stafford concern. I think Higbee went later than he normally does. Van Jefferson, probably not. But yeah, man, already making the bet on Stafford with the Kupp picks, might as well just double down, triple down.
Yeah, I think it's been right about where Tyler Higbee's been going. He's been pretty low throughout best ball season. We're not hearing a whole lot about him, but it doesn't seem like that knee surgery is an issue, right? From the injury that he had right at the end of last season.
Yeah, no, he's been a full go for camp as far as I know.
Mhm.
How does Ian Hartitz take Watson over Dubs?
Maybe he's just still shooting for the season-long upside of Watson. I mean, I'm not a Watson guy.
He's a lifelong Dubs fan from like 2 months ago. And isn't Watson going super late now?
Yeah.
Underdog, like he's going almost undrafted. And Dubs is shooting up. Dubs goes behind Christian Watson and Sammy Watkins tonight. Really? Like that's egregious.
Yeah, Watson's not even getting drafted in underdog drafts right now. I've done
Crazy.
a few over the past week. Yeah.
I mean, is that gone too far?
I wasn't a fan to begin with, so it's easy for me to just say I'm out with this knee issue and the fact that he's missing most of camp. I still see the ceiling argument for him, but I think if he hits a ceiling, it's not going to be this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he belongs certainly in draft consideration, but I think it's sensible for him to be going that late because we're talking about a second round pick, so it's not in that must first round where teams feel like they have to get something out of a guy immediately. It is a prospect that most people thought was raw, and the injury stuff that's keeping him off the field while Romeo Doubs is emerging. So there's room for Green Bay to be more patient with Christian Watson, a player who looks like he should be. I don't know. He should be engendering patience.
Also, Doubs was not like a 7th round pick. He was a 4th round pick. I mean, not too different from Watson early second. Different, but not just like crazy different. So I don't know. I'm on board. And also, by the way, here as we go to the paper, Zachary's last pick.
Oh, you got it?
There it is.
Gino?
Well, it actually says Eno, Adam. If you look closely, it doesn't say Gino. It doesn't say Gino. It says Eno.
Eno, that's right.
You have to cover the G.
Nice job, Mike, nailing that pick and looking at Zach's team. We did watch him, as we expected, hit running back pretty hard after waiting until 11-1 to take his first. Went Kenneth Walker, Michael Carter, Alexander Madison, 3 straight picks. Madison's a nice one, especially to add to that kind of build. Then took a little break for George Pickens, but followed with Khalil Herbert, James Robinson, Eno Benjamin. So certainly lots of maybes and lots of going to get some touches, and I hope he finds the end zone. I think James Robinson's probably a good guy to draft for those kind of builds in particular at this point. What do you think, Jared?
I'm pissed. Ian just sniped me on Brian Robinson, so I'm trying to recover.
Recover.
I got you, buddy.
If you're gonna take a detour for a late round receiver, George Pickens is the guy to take a detour for. Now I'm sure he was devastated. McKenzie went the pick before him, but Pickens is a nice consolation prize.
Is that more stack blocking
sure.
between Zach and Abib? Is Abib keeping Isaiah McKenzie from getting to the Josh Allen team?
Maybe. Great point. It's hard though. Like when you're in these, I don't know. I feel like it's hard in a draft when I'm really focused to worry about like everyone, like other people's teams. Like I know at the end of the rounds, you're very sensitive to what the other teams are doing because you want to know who's going to fall back to you. So he would probably know that he might want a Bills receiver to go with Josh Allen. But I feel like at this late, I mean, are you really stack blocking in the 14th round? But he could be. It
also could be great value. Like if he gets that job, as everybody but me seems to think that he will. Like 14 after some of those guys going before him. I mean, I don't know. I think that has potential on its own.
Hey, we talked about growth from Jared. That's growth from Mike. As recently as last Wednesday, he was like, really? Isaiah McKenzie in round 14, and now he's up to it might be great value.
Well, I mean, I would always have conceded that it's possible, and most people seem to think it's going to happen. You watch the show. Watch the show. I'm not doing it again tonight. The night before and then that day. I don't need to keep banging on that. But I do have Jared's next pick written down.
Nice. Jared, I think it was probably easier to recover because I watched Alec Pierce go right before your spot too, which I was wondering if that was another one that hurt you. But I mean, DPJ as a consolation prize is not bad, especially when you already have Deshaun Watson rostered.
Right. Pierce was in my queue, but DPJ was one spot ahead of him. I mean, DPJ's been getting a lot of hype, but his ADP is not climbing. I'm not sure what's up with that, but I love him here.
I think maybe the Brian Robinson Jr. quote unquote snipe might have forced you to the better pick in Donovan Peoples-Jones just for what you already have rostered here. especially with the 4 running backs already. I think DPJ was the way to go. So I think you should send a thank you note to Ian instead of being mad.
I'm not doing that. I wanted Robinson.
Maybe a fruit basket. We're going to be coming to the end of our stream here pretty soon because the guys, we've been on for almost an hour and a half. The guys are into round 16. Let's take a quick perusal of the board. We saw the big slowdown in quarterback that we talked about, as we would have expected. After the Baker Mayfield pick at 9-3, then it was 3 more rounds until Desean Watson went to Jared's team. Marcus Mariota the next round in the 13th. Then Mitchell Trubisky another 2 rounds after that. I don't know, Mike, you talked about the Pittsburgh quarterbacks being stinky, and we'll talk about them some more in our in-studio pod tomorrow. I still think I would go for Mitchell Trubisky earlier than that. So I guess maybe there's 2 tips now for free to my competitors tomorrow night. I'm not taking Mason Rudolph, and if Mitchell Trubisky is still on the board in round 15, I guess I'm buying.
To me, the answer is Pickett, because even though I know it doesn't have to be this way, he's the guy that has to get on the field. And Trubisky could be one bad game, and Rudolph is more just like prop bet. Would he get drafted at all? But Pickett for me is still the one I would want to bet on. And let's take a look at what was written down for Jared just a few minutes ago.
Oh my goodness, Mike. Oh my God.
Zamir White.
Get out of my head.
I didn't do this. I did write down Zamir.
That one's
Zamir.
crazy. So what made you write his name down?
Oh, it's so long ago.
I think it's because I'm going to talk about Josh Jacobs in our Good Vibes, Bad Vibes show tomorrow.
That's right.
See, we can't see the whole draft, but I don't see a lot of pink there. So it was running back time for me, for you.
Yeah.
And he was the name that came to mind. That's all. Nothing more.
That's it. Instant.
That's just Mike showing that he's ready to take down the bare knuckles draft out in Vegas this year.
Yes.
He's out here fighting 1930s boxer style.
That's how I was raised.
All right. Well, that is going to be about it for night 4 of the Draft Sharks Invitational. I'm going to be drafting tomorrow night, as I mentioned. I'm still going to be on the stream because, like I said earlier, I've tested it now over the past 2 years, and clearly my better results come from when I am talking and drafting at the same time, so I'm not thinking too much about the players that I pick. But I'm going to turn over the hosting reins to my deep end buddies right here. It's going to be Mike and Adam, and then I'll just be waiting in the corner trying to tell them to stop talking to me while I'm figuring out who I'm taking around that 1-2 turn, and then each turn beyond that.
Listen, it'll be good practice, Matt. You got to sign up for your main event still and get that live stream ready to go.
I do. I'm looking forward to that. Won some money from that I've used to invest in more best ball drafts. So I'm even more practiced now than I was the past 2 years. I'm very ready for my entry to this tournament. If you're ready for a better league hosting experience, you should hit Fantrax. Like we said earlier, fantrax.com/draftsharks. It's totally free. It's totally customizable. And if you have any snags along the way, if you hit a spot where you're not sure what to do in your league setup, they're waiting with customer service to help you through that. So fantrax.com/draftsharks. And of course, you should use the Draft Sharks tools to then beat your friends on Fantrax when you draft that league. Because at draftsharks.com, we are ready for you to become a DS Insider. Take advantage of the draft war room that Jared's using right now that I'll be using tomorrow night. That can be customized to fit your league, whatever the format you're using, and it can sync with your draft on Fantrax or wherever you're playing. So for all my friends here in the stream, Jared Smola joining us late, Adam Krautwurst, Mike Shope, I'm Matt Schauf saying thanks so much for swimming with us.